I wasn't planning to do another video tonight, but I finished reading a book and I thought I might as well do it now while it's fresh in my head. And it's a fun book to look at. The book is Lost Marvels Volume 1, Tower of Shadows. So this is a collection of the first 8 issues of Tower of Shadows, which was a horror and more like a spooky anthology from Marvel back in 1969 through to 1970. It was published bi-monthly, and it was their attempt to resurrect like the old like EC magazines, and the popularity of what the black and white magazines were seen with like creepy and that lot and eerie. And so they got basically the young Turks to do a lot of the stories. So you had like the up and coming writers like Roy Thomas, Marv Wolfman, um, a very young Jerry Conway, and also up and coming artists like Barry Windsor Smith, and some artists who've been around for a few years, but they've always been like more into like the non superhero stuff like Wallywood, and they also Jim Steranko and Gene Colan, etc. So this collects, like I said, the first 8 issues. There was a 9th issue, but they've only got the cover in that because they adapted a number of H.P. Lovecraft stories, and Fantagraphics weren't, because this is published by Fantagraphics, by the way. Fantagraphics weren't sure of um, the legality of reprinting those stories because they didn't know about the copyrights and ownership, etc. So they've been excluded from this. Tower of Shadows did carry on after issue 9 as well, but it became more like just a series of reprints of old stuff from the 50s and 60s pre-superhero Marvel stories. So they've just kept with the stuff of original stuff from the comic, which is the first 8 issues. There's a really interesting. I love that frontispiece, by the way. There's a really good introduction by Dr. Michael Dean. He goes through the whole history of the formation of the comic. He highlights the teams that are on it. John Romita was one of the artists as well on it, and Neil Adams, etc. So it's like I said, it's all the big names, or the ones who became big names within a few years of this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through it issue by issue and just give like a rating for the stories. And I think it might surprise you by that the ones that are my favourites are not necessarily the ones that you'd expect to be my favourites, because of the teams that are associated on them. But we'll go for it. Show you the covers as well. So that's the first cover for issue 1. Really nice cover. So the first story, this is a really nice, fantastic story. It's written and illustrated by Jim Steranko. And I think out of the bunch of them, Jim Steranko's, there's a few artists who've done their own writing in these stories. Some of them aren't great. We'll come to that in a bit. But the Jim Steranko one is really, really good. And so in the first few issues, they have like the creepy horror host like they did in Earring and the EC comics. And the one in this is called Digger, which is this character here. So as you can see, the Jim Steranko artwork is amazing. Of course, he does the colouring as well. It's called At the Stroke of Midnight. It's set in this like spooky house, and you can tell it's Steranko straight away when you look at the panel layouts. Very, very experimental. The colouring is amazing as well. It's funny because when you're looking at this and then you see Barry Windsor Smith, or Barry Smith was as he was known back then, you can see how advanced Jim Steranko was compared to some of his contemporaries who were just about 7 or 8 years younger than him. Barry Windsor Smith being one of them, because this is just perfection. This is just gorgeous. I poured over this. I was just like really, really just soaking in the colours, the layouts. So this story was really good. I'd give this story a solid 8 out of 10. Then the next one is written and drawn by Johnny Craig. So again, it's another writer. It's another artist slash writer. Johnny Craig did loads of stuff for EC, so he's a perfect fit for this. But I think, if I remember rightly, I think John Romita Senior did the faces to give it more like the in-house Marvel look. But this is really good. From Beyond the Brink, this is about a skeptic who's trying to debunk all these mediums. And of course, it being a Sting in the Tail story, there's a big twist on it. But the artwork is really, really good. Really, really nice. I had a lot of fun with this story. This is very much more in the vein of like the classic EC kind of stories with a shock ending. And it was very, very satisfactory. I really, really enjoyed this story. I thought this was a strong one. So this I would give, this is one of my favourite ones. So I give this a 9 out of 10. I will say, I think the first 2 to 3 issues are the strongest ones. It then kind of loses its way a bit, but we'll come to that later. Next up is a story written by Stan Lee, and John Buscema is doing the pencils, inks by Don Heck. The art in this is gorgeous. I really, really do like this. Again, it's John Buscema. I mean, you can't go wrong with John Buscema. And again, he's another artist who seems more comfortable doing non-superhero stories. But this one was about a silent laboratory assistant, and it turns out there's a reason he's just like biding his time. And the twist in this one, I thought was a bit naff, to be honest. But the art was great. You could tell it was a Stan Lee story, put it that way. A lot of overwriting. I mean, Stan Lee is the Tom King of his generation. But the artwork was a pleasure. So for that reason, I'll give this story a 7 out of 10. What I do like about this as well, they have the bullpen bulletin ones. So showing, it's just great seeing what comics were out at the same time. So I was just having much fun reading that as well. And I think there'll be another cover now. Oh yeah, and Chamber of Darkness came out today, so it's got me intrigued. I want to know what Chamber of Darkness was like. So this is the issue. This is the cover to issue number 2. Not not the greatest cover. I do think issue number 1 was a lot better. But this next story is by Roy Thomas with art by Don Heck. I've never been the biggest fan of Don Heck, but I must admit I do like that title page. This is about a glory hound who wants to make a name for himself through sensationalist means. So he travels to this country to try and find these witches in this country and to expose them. And of course, like I said, there's a stinging tail. The story, I'll give this one a 6 out of 10. It wasn't the greatest. The artwork's fine. Um, but then there's another John Buscema one, and in about the past 10 to 15 years, I've really grown to love John Buscema. I never really was a big fan of his back in the day. It's weird how your taste changes as you get older, but this is just great. This is about a guy he's a luddite. He hates technology. He thinks that technology is ruining, taking over the world. He's trying to fight back against it. And again, great opening page. Is this construction work, this minor construction worker kind of guy doing. And I really did enjoy this story. Who was this one by? Did I say? Gary Friedrich is the writer on this one. This had a great sting in the tail. So again, I give this an 8 out of 10. I really did enjoy that one. Now we're coming on to the artwork's great, but he's never been the greatest one for writing. So we've got one here illustrated by Neil Adams and written by Neil Adams. This is called One Hungers. It left me baffled, but the art is beautiful. The art is absolutely stunning, of course. It's Neil Adams. And he does make me laugh, Neil Adams, because he's very much wants, he always wants, even when he's an old man, he wants to be very much of the moment. So he's using all the lingo, all the jargon of the youth, but Oh, this story was a stinker. I'll give the story a 4 out of 10, but the art is a definite 9 out of 10. I do love this cover though, as well, for issue number 3. Really, really good. And oh yeah, this was great. I really enjoyed this story. This was by Len Wein, so no wonder I liked it. I mean, horror was in Len Wein's blood. So it's called The Moving Finger Reefs, and the star of this volume, he's done a number of stories in this volume, is Gene Colan. He's always been good. He's always been amazing. Just look at it. This is about a down on his luck guy. He's in a loveless marriage. This one is very much a Twilight Zone kind of mini, like little story. And so I really enjoyed it because I love the Twilight Zone. It's about this guy, and suddenly something uncanny happens, and it changes his life for the better initially, but then again, it's got to have stinging tail, and it's a good one. I really enjoyed it. I knew it was coming. I could predict it coming, but even so, it didn't detract from the pleasure of the whole outcome. And yeah, that was a solid 8 out of 10. For the arts, the Gene Colan story, each of the Gene Colan stories, especially one of his latest ones, 9.5 going on to 10. I'll show the latest one near the end, obviously, because just amazing, especially when you think when it was illustrated. Now, the next one is George Tusker doing the artwork. Gary Frederick Conn writing again. Midnight in the Wax Museum. And they've done away with the horror host, and they've now got like the artists or writers to being the horror host. So Gary Frederick's doing this one. It's called Midnight in the Wax Museum. So this museum suddenly mysteriously appears. It's apparently a wax museum, but turns out maybe it's not. This was silly. It was very, very silly. It's a lot of fun. I'd give this one for the artist story a 6 out of 10. But like I said, it was throwaway fun. And what is good with this, they've got a letters page in this on issue number 1. And I was laughing because one of the letters, comic fans have always been knobs. And this one, there's a guy ranting about how awful, the one about the story I was gushing over, how awful Jim Steranko's first story was. I love it. I love it. Even back then, you had opinionated comic fans. Oh, it's just wonderful. So these are. I'm just so pleased I've included these in. And then you got issue number 4 cover. Again, I really do like this cover. Within the Witching Circle. And this first story is written by Alan Brodsky. Never heard of them. Don Heck doing the art again. Ooh, Don Heck. They've got him dressed as a hipster. He was like one of the older guard of artists on this, and he's like mocking himself. It's very, very embracing the hippie culture here with the storyline. Yeah, this was stupid. I'm not even going to attempt to explain it. The art is just okay, so this definitely was a 6 out of 10. But then we come on to another great one. I really enjoyed this story. Again, really good sting in the tail. Marv Wolfman. So of course it's going to be good. Even back then, I mean, Marv Wolfman must have been about 21, if that. Could have been 20 when he wrote this. Same with Jerry Conway. I think he was 17. Um, and the Young Guns had it. They had they were trying to bring a change to comics. You could see the difference in those stories compared to like Stanley and some of the older guards. So, and it's got Gene Collins does the introduction as well, by the way. See his little head there. So this is called One Little Indian. I mean, just look at opening page, just fantastic. So Gene Collins does the artwork, and so this guy upsets a fortune teller, and so I'm not going to give anything else away, but she predicts something to him, and it makes him extremely paranoid. And yeah, it was very, very satisfactory. So this was a definite 8 out of 10. It made up for the clunkiness of the previous story. So yeah, really enjoyed that. And this is another one that I really, really enjoyed because it's one of my favourite artists. I didn't realise he was so old. Actually, he was born in 1937. I thought he was only like born in the 50s. But it's Tom Sutton who did loads. He's done loads of stuff for creepy and eerie and that lot. So he's very much in the horror roots. He did a brilliant run on Man Thing, and he also did a great reinvention of the Man Thing for Marvel Comics Presents back in the 80s and 90s. So I really, really do like him, and he's aided in the scripting by Denny O'Neil. This is called To Sneak a Chance to Scream. This, I think, that opening page. This, along with the Gene Colan book stories, I think is my favourite story. This is a 9 out of 10. About these crooked secret agents and how they get the comeuppance. It was great. It was just gonzo storytelling at its best. And I don't like this cover. I've got a confession to make. I love Barry Windsor Smith. One of my Grail books, which I'm looking at right now, is the Young Gods book, which I got recently. I adore that Barry Windsor Smith. I adore Barry Windsor Smith from about when he kind of was developing his form with Conan, but this is pre-Conan. He was not, but it just shows how some artists blossom and grow mature, and then you get others who are called Rob Liefeld, who are just crap. They always will be, but he'll know. I bet I get blocked by Rob Liefeld. He seems to know when people mention his name. It's like fucking Beetlejuice. But yeah, it was very much. You could tell he was still finding his style. Back in the day, back in the '60s, Barry Windsor Smith was very much like a bad Jack Kirby. So this cover is not great. And it's called The Demon That Devoured Hollywood. It's by Roy Thomas, and this isn't Roy Thomas's best writing either, but you can see how they formed a bond, a creative bond. Very Man from Atlantis opening shot there. So this one is about this actor who's basically like the new Lon Chaney. He's meant to have like the best makeup, but it turns out somebody else does his makeup. But then obviously there's going to be a twist on how he does his makeup. And yeah, this one was definitely a 6. Now we're coming on to this could be my rant of this book. I'm really pleased I got this book. I'm even more pleased because it didn't cost me anything. Because if you saw my Speedy Hen unboxing, I had a real generous um, voucher from eBay, so I saved a lot of money. So some books I didn't have to pay for, and this was one of them. But I'd have got it anyway, just for the historical thing and for some of the artwork. The art in this next story is gorgeous. It's Wally Wood, but Wally Wood, not a good writer, and he's very obsessed with all his Tower of Shadow stories are very high fantasy based, and they all seem to have the same kind of beat, the same kind of story outcome, and the same kind of villain. It's very weird. But this one's called Flight into Fear. The first page, great. I love that panel of Wally Wood introducing the story. But the dialogue, he makes Stan Lee look like Shakespeare. But the art, obviously, it's Wally Wood. It's great, wonderful art. So art, I would give a solid 8 out of 10. Story, 4. But now we come on to a really great story. I really enjoyed this one, and it was a twist, but this was an unusual one because it had a twist with a happy ending. And this is called Time Out. It's by Jerry Conway, who sadly passed away this year. I'm getting emotional because Jerry Conway was one of the Marvel writers, and then obviously DC later on, who I really, really got into his work as a kid. I loved his Spider-Man run. He did some of my favorite Spider-Man stories, and I actually chatted to him quite a few times on Threads and X before then. And he was such a nice, genuine guy, and you could tell he just appreciated his fans for appreciating his work. He was very, very humble, really nice, lovely guy, and it's a shame that he's gone. He sadly he lost the battle. Well, it wasn't a battle, but he lost. he lost his life to cancer. So many people this year who've done that. It's horrible, horrible, but he left behind a wonderful legacy, and this is one of them. This is one of his earlier works called Time Out, and it's written, illustrated by Sid Shaw, who I've never heard of. But his artwork is great. I mean, just look at that cover, that frontispiece, what he's done. Absolutely wonderful. So this was a really good. There's a lot of stories in this where they're going to like these, like, oh, it's almost like the DC House of Mystery where they're going to these weird houses, and this is no exception. But the twist in it at the end was very, very good. It was a very satisfactory ending, and I really enjoyed it. And again, there's a really good letters page there. And this is my favourite cover. This is Pray for the Man in the Rat Hole. There's no story. They didn't have a man in the rat hole in the story, unless they'd removed it, but there was no rat hole. I was quite upset, but I love that cover. That's my cover of the book. I absolutely adore it. And we're back onto the Bollywood one. Oh my god. It's just like a repetition of the same one. This one's called The Ghost Beast. Like I said, great art, but oh, it was fantasy by numbers. Shocking, shocking story. You can tell he likes Prince Valiant. So again, art 8 out, a solid 8 out of 10. Story, ah, nice little. I remember adverts like that. And then this is a really fun out there 2-pager by Tom Sutton. I think he's done the lettering on this as well. This is just Tom Sutton gone wild. This is the closest you get to like underground comics in this comic. It's just wonderful. Really, really enjoyed that. So this was an easy 9 out of 10. I just loved it. It just made me giggle. This one I think is one of my favourite stories. It's by Steve Skeets and artwork by Gene Colan with Dan Adkins inking. Just gorgeous artwork. Oh my god. Gene Colan. I think I've got two. I love artists like Bill Sienkiewicz and other artists, but I think my two all-time favourite artists have got to be. It's a tie between Gene Colan and Joe Kubert. They've always been timeless. You could drop them. You could pick up a comic from them, what they did in the 60s, and it looks like it's been done today. Not many people have that skill. I mean, just look at this. This one is about this guy who records sounds. He's like a sound, for doing sound effects, but he makes these accidents happen so he can get like the most realistic sound because it's actually a realistic sound. But look at this of these two speeding cars. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful artwork. He just I know I'm not alone in this. I know Geeky Hog and Mr. McGroovy are both channels, by the way. If you're not subscribed, you should do. They both sing the praises of Gene Colan as well for a reason. He's just a genius. There's a very painful. It's a weird thing to say, but his pencil strokes were very painfully. He didn't draw like anybody else. There's a there's a weird, almost like buttery fluidity to it. But yeah, really love it. This is a clunker of a cover. That's awful. It's like something from the 40s. It's called Titano, the monster that time forgot. I've got a feeling they must have had a reprint story in because that story's not included in here. Like I said, they got rid of all the reprint ones. Now this one, it's Alan Brodsky. It's not great. It's set in England, and it's very much cod English. I hate it when they do these type of things where it's like, oh, cool, loving governor. This was called The Scream of Things. I do like the opening page. This is, again, very young Barry Smith, or Barry Windsor Smith, but I don't like the art in this one. No. But it's weird. You forgive him because you know what a genius he becomes later on. You can see little glimpses of it, but not much. And to be honest, I can't tell you what this story really was about because it kind of, I think I zoned out reading it. It wasn't great. So I'd give this story. This is my least favorite. I think this might be my least favorite one, or one of them. I think I'd give it a 5 for art and story combined. And we're back to Hollywood with his crappy fantasy stories, Swords and Sorcery. And again, the art gorgeous, but the story is just a repetition of the other ones he's done. God, I love his art, but Wally, you weren't a great writer, or not in this anyway. So again, I'd give this a artwork 8 out of 10. Story, fuck knows. I do like this cover. This is this is I'm doomed. There's no escape from the demons of Dragonhenge again. Not a story that was in here, but or was it? No, I think this one was. Yeah, it was. Just again, it's Wallywood again doing a crappy fantasy story. Gorgeous, gorgeous artwork. So it's worth the price of admission for that. So again, artwork, solid 8 out of 10. Actually, this artwork could be a 9 out of 10 because it's his strongest one. But the story is not great. And then that's it. Like I said, number 9, I think they had copyright issues with the ones that they thought they might be able to reprint, but they couldn't do. And the rest were just reprints, so didn't include them. But there is that we do have the cover, and it's a gorgeous cover. It's Benny Wrightson. So I think this and the Rat one are my two favourite covers. It's $34.99 from Fantagraphics. You get a really fantastic introduction. Like I said, it goes deep into the formation of it and the creators behind it. And then there's potted biographies of all the creators. It's kind of sad because Jerry Conway's so funny because he was alive when this book first came out, and he, like I said, he only died not so long ago. But God, okay, out of all these, there's loads of creators. There's only 4 that are still alive: Jim Steranko, Roy Thomas, Barry Windsor Smith, Marv Wolfman, and that's it. God, but yeah, fantastic book. I'm going to be getting the other. I'm going to get some of the Lost Marvels. I'm not sure if I get the Barry Windsor Smith one. I'm going to wait. I think until the Machine Man one comes out. I'll cave and I'll get the first one as well. But I want to get the Howard Shaker one that comes after this. And there is a Savage Tales one that one I want. What I want to get as well. And there's been a Gil Kane one, but I'm going to look into that one first because if it's mainly like just art and not full stories, I won't get it. Um, and like I said, I'm going to bring out another Barry Windsor Smith one. I'm going to do more stuff as well, so I can't wait. I hope they do some Jack Kirby as well. That'd be nice to see, like his 50s stuff. I think Dark Horse has got the rights to that. But yeah, highly recommend this. If you've been umming and ahhing about it, I would recommend diving in. Maybe not with this one. Maybe try the Howie Shaken one or the Savage Tales, which reprints the whole in its entirety of that 1980s run of Savage Tales. So hope you enjoyed that. Bye.